Okay, this is something I want to try to do weekly, although we know me and my shitty scheduling, so probably not. This is something I want to do. This is to more document my, I guess, recent music adventures, of anything, and I want to try to document the albums I listen to a week. Usually, I'll listen to at least two albums. Usually, I have my moments where I just don't listen to anything in a week. I want to just document, give my opinions on them, and try to see if maybe my opinion will change on them in the nearby future. I'm not too sure. Two of these albums are re listens, and two are not. I've listened to four albums this week that I'll go over, and two of them are by the same band, so I'm just going to get them over with. I listened to The Way of the Fist and War is the Answer by Five Finger Death Punch. Now, Five Finger Death Punch is a pretty notorious band in terms of just kind of within the metal community, specifically new or groove metal. I do not particularly care for Five Finger Death Punch. I think the thing that I don't like about Five Finger Death Punch the most is definitely their vocalist. I think that their vocalist is shitty at singing, but I think that he has some decent moments in terms of growled vocals. They have a song called Dying Breed, which is on their second album, and I think that he's actually pretty decent on that song when he's growling. His singing is fucking atrocious, but when he's growling, within the verses, I can't remember any of the lyrics, thank God, but the growling within the verses are actually pretty decent. I think that their vocalist would be a lot better if they just kind of ditched the singing and just did more growled stuff. But I've only listened to their second album. They have like fucking eight, I think, or eight nine albums. So I'm not too sure. I don't even know if I'll listen to many more of their albums. But that's the main thing. The second thing is obviously lyrics. I don't really know who the fuck listens to Five Finger Death Punch and actually enjoys their lyrics. In terms of me musically, whenever I listen to music, I tend to push lyrics off to the side, and I consider if the lyrics are genuinely good, then that just kind of it adds to it. But if there's actual like just lyrics that I don't really care for, I tend to push those off to the side, and it usually doesn't sway my opinion of music. Like my favorite band is fucking Hollywood Undead. I don't think my opinion of lyrics should matter to begin with. But Five Finger Death Punch lyrics are definitely cringeworthy, and it definitely does raise a few eyebrows when you're listening to them because they take themselves too seriously in an almost hypocritical way. It almost becomes hypocritical to a point of how much they take themselves seriously when they're a very they're a very goofy band. But I think that they're okay at riffs. I don't completely hate a lot of their riffs. I think some of their acoustic stuff is decent. So instrumentally, they're not too bad, but there's nothing worth noting. I guess I can't say that I remember any like the only like Five Finger Death Punch song I think is actually decent, and I remember it slightly is Dying Breed, which I referenced before. I think that that riff is actually pretty good. But I can't remember any other Five Finger. I remember Ashes, I guess. And other than that, out of those two albums, I can only really remember two of those songs. Everything is pretty forgettable. And yeah, no, I don't like those albums. I give The Way of the Fist a 4. Or, I mean, I give The Way of a Fist a 3, and I give War is the Answer a 4 out of 10. I think that they could have been better, maybe if their vocalist didn't sing as much. I mean, like I said, the riffs aren't great, but I guess I could forgive the riffs for not being so great if the vocalist was kind of good. This other album, or the third album I listened to, is Stampede by HED. I've listened to, I can't think of the name right now, Back to America. I listened to that album by them like a month or two back, and I decently enjoyed that album. I'm not too big into punk rock as some of my peers. I think punk rock's a neat genre. I like some of the things that come out of it, but usually punk rock isn't my cup of tea. But I think that there are some pretty enjoyable songs off of Back to America, specifically Wake Up and Voices. Those songs are pretty good. But listening to that album and then jumping straight into Stampede probably wasn't a good idea because I didn't know that they could go mainstream, and I didn't know that they were going to try to go mainstream because Head PE always seemed like a band that was pretty content with their level of, I guess, popularity. They always seemed pretty content, and they were always pretty happy with their fan base. But then it seems like they were trying to reach a new audience with this album with its more fucking I guess radio approach to production. And if you told me that fucking Jared was on that album, I would have said bullshit, because it just doesn't sound like Jared doing vocals, honestly. It sounds like a whole ass other person. There is one song that I remember off this album, one song that I actually thought was like halfway decent comparative to the rest of the songs, and that song was Why Not Me. And that's because that's back to their like, it still has that like really bad production that the rest of the album has, but it goes back to the, rap metal punk rock roots of songs with it, but it just carries over that awful fucking production. So it's not like we're getting like fucking Back to America production on this album. So like that song, I didn't like it that much, but I still thought that it was like decent comparative to the others. There was a lot of like random pop elements thrown into this album, I noticed, which is really weird for Head PE, because they're the furthest from pop. So yeah, and then they had some trap instrumentals, some trap drumming on there, which just furthered my opinion down on why I give it a 3 out of 10. It's just, it doesn't feel like Head PE. I can always appreciate an artist for trying to experiment their sound, but Head PE always seemed like a band that had a pretty consistent sound, and they just kind of threw their consistency just kind of in the trash for this one. I haven't listened to any of their other albums, so maybe they've gone this kind of pop album, or this kind of pop sound, because I mean, looking at their genres on Rate Your Music, as I look on the class of 2020, we got rap metal, alt metal, rap rock, and new metal, which is pretty close to what they've always been doing. So it seems as after this they kind of went back to basics, which, thank fucking god. I hope to never hear another album like this again from Head PE. I will definitely give Head PE's earlier music another chance. Like I said, I think Back to America's a neat album. I think Broke is one of their fan favorites, along with Back to Base X and maybe some other shit. If you're a Head PE fan, let me know some albums to check out by them. I'm happy. I love some of their songs. So yeah, I'm definitely willing to check out more Head PE. Yeah, like I said, give that a 3 out of 10. The final album I listened to this week was Rare Americans 2 by the band Rare Americans. Um, if you know of Rare Americans, it is possible that that is from their song Brittle Bones Nicky, either the first or the second one. I know they have some other popular singles, but I think Brittle Bones Nicky is their most popular one, because I think it was played as a YouTube ad, so you would actually like listen to it on an ad. I know some bands have done that before. I think even Hollywood Undead's done that with a couple of their songs. So that's not how I found them. I found them just on my recommendations, and then listen to Brother Bones Nicky. I think it's a pretty good song. Actually, I really love that song. My friend Midori, he was listening to more of their stuff, listened to an album. I was like, okay, well, I want to try my hand, see what they got. And I was decently surprised with this album. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. My main problem with this album, it is not paced too well. It's 50 minutes long with 16 songs, which that doesn't sound bad, but I guess it just kind of gets, I guess the pacing just slows down. Like the first was this one, two, three, four. Like the first like 6 songs of this album are pretty fucking good. Like there is a strong start with these first 6 songs. Brother Bones Nicky, Milkman, Falling Down, No Easy Roots, Hullabaloo, Knife Guns in Bed. Those are like really strong 6 songs. But then it just kind of devolves into it's just not nearly as strong as the rest of the album was. There's some neat songs throughout the album, so I'm not saying that those first 6 songs are the only songs worth listening to, because there's definitely some songs after those 6 songs that are worth mentioning, like Brittle Bones Nicky 2, I think is pretty good. If I remember off the top of my head, Up Up and Away and 9 Times Out of 10, I think I like those songs, but my favorites are Brittle Bones Nicky, Milkman, No Easy Roads, and Knife Guns in Bed. The production isn't particularly great but I think the riffage kind of makes up for it. This is an indie rock album with some elements of pop, some elements of rap, some elements of alternative rock thrown in. And I think that the riffage was pretty fucking good. Like there's some really good guitarists in Rare Americans, and I'm definitely gonna listen to some more of their stuff. I listened to this album and not any other ones because I had Brittle Bones Nicky, so I just want to listen to the album with that one in it. But The vocalist is the vocalist isn't particularly great either. I think that he has some pretty good moments in this album. I remember off the top of my head, I really like the chorus to Knives Guns in Bed, um, Milkman, No Easy Roads, Brother Bones Nicky 1. I think that there's some all pretty good vocalist moments in there, but throughout the album, I mean, he's not like, maybe it's because maybe I got a little tired of his voice after hearing it a bunch, but think that he's good. I think that he is a decent singer, but maybe some vocal lessons would do him good. No, I'm not discrediting him as a vocalist. Like I said, I think he's pretty good. He definitely has some good moments, but maybe after a little bit, I got a little tired of his voice. I'm not too sure. But I'd say that this is a pretty good album. My main issue is it just kind of gets a little lackluster in the second act. I don't know. I got a little tired after, 16 songs. After, like, after, like, the 8th or ninth song, I was getting kind of tired of the album. But at least Brother Bones Nicky 2 was one of the, was on one of the shorter ends, so it gave the ending, or it gave a nice outro to the album. But those were, and I give this album an 8 out of 10. It's pretty good. Recently I've been listening to a lot of Milkman, No Easy Roads, and Knife Guns in Bed. Like I said, those are all really good songs. If you're looking for some good indie rock, that's my. I know Rare Americans aren't exactly the most praised indie rock band out there, but that's my opinion. If you want to check out some indie rock that I like, check out those songs. But that's all the albums I listened to this week. Uh, two 3 out of 10s, one 4 out of 10, and one 8 out of 10. That was not what I was expecting, because I rarely listen to stuff that I just straight up don't like. But I did like the two Five Finger Death Punch albums at one point, but that was during my cringe era, so that's out the window. But that's it. If your opinions differ on any of the albums, if you don't like my opinion, or if you agree with my opinion, let me know. That's it. See ya.